Grace, mercy, and peace be multiplied unto you, people of God. Thank you so very much for tuning in today for this awesome teaching. We trust that you're going to be blessed by the word that you are going to hear today, that we will be sharing with you by way of the Holy Spirit. I pray that all is well with you and your family in the name of Yeshua, and we pray that you stay safe in Jesus' name. So today, we are going to be talking about believing, and that is a very powerful word. And you know that oftentimes we hear people say, I believe in God, I believe in Yeshua, I believe in living a good moral life. But we're going to look at that today and see that believing alone by itself is not sufficient. And that's our topic for today. Believing only isn't sufficient. So if you're only believing, that is the beginning of your continued walk and trust with the Father. Now we're going to look at the word believing. What does it mean to actually believe? According to the dictionary, believing is to know the existence or the reality of something, or to have understanding of something. So believing is simply to know the existence. We know that God exists. You know, everything that we see, everything that we don't see, the word supports that it was created by him. And by his word, it still consists. So we believe and we know that there is God. We know that there is a supreme being. We know that there is someone that has dominion over everything that we see and don't see. So that's simply to believe. To believe is to know the existence, or to believe the existence or the reality of it, and to understand. So we're going to look at a very powerful scripture today in James, the book of James, and we're going to look at chapter 2, verse 14. Then we're going to read verse 17, and then verse 21. So James, the second chapter, verse 14, in the Amplified reads, "What is the use, profit, my brethren, for anyone to profess to have faith, if he has no good works to show for it? Can such faith save his soul?" So you see, if we can have faith and we can believe, and believing to a deeper degree is faith, okay? We believe the existence, and by faith we receive, by faith, who he is and that he does exist, okay? But if we say that we have faith or that we believe, and we don't have work to show it, if we don't have proof of our faith, if we don't have proof of what we believe, then it's really not profitable. So you see that believing is more than the simply base definition of believing, but it goes much deeper and beyond that, okay? James 2:17 says, "So also, if it does not have works," talking about faith, "if faith does not have works, deeds and actions of obedience to back it up, by itself is destitute of power. It is inoperable." It is dead, okay? James 2:21, "Was not our forefather Abraham shown to be justified, made acceptable to God by his works, when he brought to the altar as an offering his own son Isaac?" So Abraham's faith, his believing and trusting in Yahweh, actually wrought him repentance. It brought him into that place of being a friend of Yahweh. So when we believe, we must have faith, and our faith must produce works, okay? Genuine faith in Yahweh produces good works, actions. You not only agree to certain facts about Yahweh. Now, that's where so many of us stop. We believe in Yahweh. We believe in certain facts about him, but we're not totally convinced that he is who he is, or that he can do and produce what he says that he can say and produce it, make it become a reality in your life. So when we believe, our belief is going to grow into faith, and our faith is actually going to give us the reality of who Yahweh is, okay? Knowing or knowledge alone does not produce faith. We can have knowledge. You can study. That's what theologists do. This is what the school of theology does. It teaches you about God. It teaches you about Yahweh. But it does not give you an experience with him unless you take the knowledge that you are learning about the Father and actually begin to work that word, begin to connect with that word and see the reality, the proof of that word being manifested in your life. So knowledge alone is not enough. Just believing is not enough. But you must take that knowledge, that wisdom, that understanding that you have, that you're receiving, and it must begin to become your lifestyle. It has to become your daily walk. It has to become your daily confession. It has to be that which is holding you firm, that is keeping you focused. That is what believing does, okay? Now, the word tells us also that the devil himself, back in James, the 2nd chapter, believes and trembles. He believed. So it's not enough, again, that we believe, because we see in the word that the devils themselves believe. And not only do they believe, they know. They know that the Father exists because they were once in his presence. He created them. So they know that he exists. They believe that he exists, but their belief does not produce good works. Their deeds are evil. So they have knowledge, but the knowledge that they had did not prevent them from attempting to provoke the Most High. The knowledge that they had of him, and even the understanding that they had of him, because they saw his mighty acts. They saw the things that he did. They had proof of who he was. They were right there in his presence. But yet it did not, their knowledge that they had, it did not hold them in the place of constantly being subject and submissive to their Creator. So believing they had, knowledge they had, understanding they had, but yet it did not lead them to salvation, nor will it ever be able to lead them to salvation, because they rejected the knowledge that they once had. And this is why Satan is known as the deceiver. He's deceiving you. He comes to deceive you so that the knowledge, he don't really care about you receiving or obtaining knowledge. He just does not want you to believe that the knowledge that you have has the power to change your lifestyle and to produce good works in you. He wants you to believe that simply having a knowledge of Yahweh is sufficient, and it is not. That's why the word tells us that we have a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. We have a form, we have knowledge, we have some understanding as to who Yahweh is. But we are not allowing that knowledge, that wisdom, glory, to cause us to be formed into the very image and likeness of our Father. So knowledge is not enough. Knowledge, all it does is puff you up. It makes you high-minded. And you sometimes become impressed with yourself, and people become impressed with you. But there's no change in your lifestyle. There's no change in the character. Believing, glory, when you put the word to work, when you truly believe the word, you're going to trust the power of that word. You're going to yield to the power and the authority of that word to transform you into a new creation. And until we do that, you're only believing, but you're not trusting totally. You have not totally yielded yourself to the authority of that word to make you a brand new creation or a brand new creature, so that you can walk in righteousness, so that you can be an example, so that you can be a light to those that is beholding or watching your walk, okay? So knowledge and trusting Yahweh is the true believer. When you actually trust him, when you know him, when you become so attached to him, when you're so close to him, when you know him and his word tells us who he is. Our word paints a clear picture to us as to who Yahweh is. And when we actually begin to allow that word to paint a picture as to who Yahweh is, then we begin to allow the picture that we see be transposed into us, and we become his image and his likeness in the flesh, right here in this realm. So every believer, you must know the Father, and you must go beyond believing and trust him totally. First, 2 Timothy. We're going to look at that. 2 Timothy 1 through 12. For the which cause I also suffer these things. Nevertheless, I am not ashamed, for I know whom I have believed. That's a powerful statement. The Apostle Paul says, I'm not just coming to you in words. I'm not just coming to you in knowledge, but I'm coming to you because of an experience and experiences that I've had with the Father. I've come to know him, that in my own body I bear the marks of him. His life is imprinted. His life has made a mark in me. And as I walk, he says, nevertheless, it is not I that live, but it is Christ. It is Hamatziah that you see. Here I am, Paul, in the flesh, but my life has become so impacted with the knowledge and the trust that I have in him. I no longer want you to see me, Paul, the man in the flesh, but I want you to see Yeshua and who he is. That is when you get to know him. It's when he becomes a part of you, and you are no longer self-sufficient in yourself, but you have all sufficiency because he's in you and you are in him. That is beyond believing. That is totally walking in faith, and by faith, walking in the transforming power of the word each and every day of your life. That word should be conforming us and transforming us each and every day. That is what the word comes to do. It comes to sanctify us. It comes to wash away all of the corrosion, all of the things that is unprofitable. That's what the word comes to do. It is constantly washing. It is constantly cleansing. It is constantly making us whole. It is constantly washing us, the outer us, so that the inner us can be seen, so that the glory of the Father can shine through us, so that we are a light unto the world. So the Apostle Paul says, I'm not ashamed, because I know in whom I believe. That is a powerful statement. So let's look at St. John, the 8th chapter, and verse 39. Now, when we talk about knowledge, knowledge is good, and that's why people go to the school of theology, and that's excellent. We should learn. We should know. We have a Bible school here. We want you to know a higher calling for a higher life. So you should receive knowledge, but not knowledge alone. The Pharisees had knowledge, and they were puffed up, but they did not allow the knowledge that they had to become more and more purified with greater revelation through Yeshua, because they rejected him. They did not want to believe. They did not want to change. They want to hold on to what they believed. But they did not allow the truth to come in and give them a greater understanding as to who the Father was. So the Pharisees had historical knowledge. You go into the Word and you can read and you can study and you know about the history and so forth. And this is what they had. They had historical knowledge. They had head knowledge, but they did not know or have spirit. So that which they knew and that which they had, because it was not spirit, they did not allow the Ruach to actually enlighten them and give them a broader understanding, to give them a deeper understanding, a deeper revelation about Yahweh. They became stuck. And that's what happens to so many born-again believers that truly love the Father, that really want to have a relationship with him, but you become stuck in traditional teaching, in theology, just knowledge, just head knowledge, book knowledge, have knowledge of what someone else has taught, but you are not allowing the knowledge, the superficial knowledge that you have, bring you into that place of knowing Yeshua and in the power of his might. Glory. This is what the Apostle Paul was talking about in Philippians when he says that I may know him in his sufferings. In his sufferings. And that's the part we don't want. We don't want to get to know or have a relationship with the Father without some tribulation, without some trials, without some tests, and you're going to have him. That is when you're going to learn the power and the authority of the word. That is when your faith is going to grow from level to level, and you're going to grow and go from strength to strength, from glory to glory. That is when more of you is going to be resolved or dissolved, and the more of Yeshua is going to shine through you. Because it's the word that is going to uphold you. It is the word that is embracing you. It is the truth of Yahweh's word that's giving you a revelation, a deeper understanding as to who he is. So you no longer just have historical knowledge or head knowledge or book knowledge, reading about someone else's experiences, and that's good. But you need to have your own experience so that you yourself may get to know him in the power of his resurrection. In the power of his resurrection. walking in the newness of life, walking, becoming a living epistle, that when people see you, they see the word, the living word, being wrought through you. That's what our life and our lifestyle is supposed to be about. So we see here, and let's look at St. John, the 9th chapter, verse 28 through 30. And they reviled him and said, "Thou art his people, but we are Moses' disciples." This was that bragging. You see, he says, we are Moses' disciples. We don't need to hear anything, Yeshua, that you have to say. We don't want to hear you talking about you were before Abraham was and you're only in your 30s. How can this be? We don't even want to receive the revelation of this. We don't even want to know the deeper revelation of you being the bread of life that came down from heaven. Not the bread, not the wafers that the children of Israel ate in the wilderness, but you are that true living bread that came down from heaven, that the Father himself set down to us and said, if you eat of this bread, you shall never hunger. Hallelujah. We don't want to hear this revelation about we must drink your blood. No. We're going to hold on to what Moses said and to what Moses taught. We don't want this revelation because we're pious and we have this head knowledge and we are stuck in what we believe. We're not willing to elevate our thinking. We're not willing to allow the word to take us to another level and to give us a deeper understanding. But we're going to hold on to that which is safe and secure. We're going to hold on to that our fathers and grandfathers and generations back taught, without receiving any new revelation that the Ruach is sending forth unto us today. So you remain stuck in history. You only have historical knowledge about Yeshua because you only believe. You believe in Yahweh, yes. But you are not really trusting him to the extent that you're opening up your heart to actually allow the word to bring you into a place of deep, undisturbed rest and peace. So historical knowledge is not enough. Simply believing is not enough. And this is what they said, but we are Moses' disciples. We know that God spoken to Moses. They said, we know that. We have the Torah. We have proof that God spoke to Moses. But as for this fellow, we know not from whence he came. We don't know who you are. Where did you come from? Aren't you Joseph's son? Aren't you that little carpenter's boy? Now you're going to come and tell us, the seed of Abraham, who Moses and Abraham are our descendants, and now you are an unknown. You're not popular. Where did you come from? What school did you go to? We're Pharisees. We've studied the law. We know the Torah. So you now, the word says that he was unlearned. It did not mean that Yeshua couldn't read and write. No, it did not. It meant that he did not go to their school of learning. You know how some of us are. We don't want to receive people if they don't have a doctorate and you don't have master's degrees and you don't have all of these things. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a higher school of learning and education. And that is the education that you learn on your face when you're praying and when you're in the Word, you're studying the Word. And you're allowing the Word to move in you and to reveal unto you things that you need to empty yourself of so that you can walk in the likeness of Yeshua. So believing, no, it is not enough. The Pharisees stayed stuck because they believed. Hallelujah. But they didn't trust, hallelujah, the word to bring them a deeper revelation. You become comfortable with who you are. You become comfortable with the little knowledge that you learned from someone else, but not having your own personal testimony. And St. John, the 9th chapter, 30th verse says, the man answered and said unto them, why herein is a marvelous thing, that ye know not from whence he is, and yet he hath opened my eyes. This man was speaking, he was testifying. He has testified. He says, I know that you're marveling and you don't know who this man is, but I know who he is. I have a testimony. He has done something for me with all of your knowledge, Pharisees, that you were not able to do for me. He opened my blind eyes. So I have my own personal testimony that no one can shake, that no one can move me from. You might not believe, but I have had an experience with him. And I know that it was a miracle. So I know that he walks in power and that he walks in authority in Yeshua's name. Glory. So we see how important it is not only to believe, but to trust and to allow what we believe to transform us, to move us to another place. Don't be as the devils, as the demons. You know, they trembled. They trembled, and we're going to talk about that a little later. They trembled because of his presence. They trembled because they only believed, but they knew. They knew. They had an experience that was undeniable. Hallelujah. The word says that Yeshua says, I saw Satan when he was kicked out of heaven, and he hit the earth like a bolt of lightning. Yeah. Demons remember that. They remember that. And they shake in terror. They shake in terror. They fear you. Demons tremble at you when they know that you walk in power and when you walk in that authority, because they have experienced firsthand the authority that Yahweh has, and that he is undefeatable, and that he cannot be denied. Demons recognized when Yeshua walked the face of the earth, demons recognized who he was. Amen. Because they had been in his presence before. They had seen his power exercised before. And when Yeshua manifested himself on the face of this earth in the form of Jesus Christ, the Messiah, whenever he came into their presence, they trembled and they bowed. They bowed in his presence, and they came to his authority, to his spoken words. Hallelujah. And that is the place that the Father wants all of his believers to come to. Not simply believing, hallelujah, but to know him and the power of his resurrection. Amen. I'm going to give this scripture, and then we're going to go into part 2 of this teaching. So you will need to tune in for part 2 at a later date, okay? So we're going to look, and we're talking about demons believe and how that they know him. And let's look at Acts. Go to Acts, the 16th chapter, and verse 16 through 17. And the word reads as follows. So remember now, we are talking about demons. They know, but they don't want you to know. That's why he's called the great deceiver. Because he knows that when you know Yeshua, you're walking in that word, you're walking that authority, that when you speak the word, demons fear and they tremble. Not when they hear your voice, but when you're speaking the word, they're actually hearing the words of the Father. They're hearing Yeshua speak. And just as they bowed before him, they will bow before you in the name of Yeshua. That's what this is about. This is why the Father keeps saying to us, believing alone is not sufficient, but begin to walk in what you believe. Begin to exercise what you believe in Yeshua's name. So now let's look at Acts, the 16th chapter, verse 16. And it came to pass, as he went to pray, a certain damsel, possessed with a spirit of divination, met us, which brought her master much gain by soothsaying. The same followed Paul and us, saying, these men are the servants of the Most High God, which show unto us the way of salvation. Now, this was a young lady that was following Paul around, and she was filled with demons. She had demon spirits. But look at how the demon spirits spoke out through her. Because they recognized that these men, these apostles, have been endued with power and authority. And they had walked with Yeshua. And Yeshua had taught them, and not only taught them, but demonstrated to them power. How to walk in that power. How to walk in that authority. How to bring demons to their knees and make them cry out and make them leave and go and walk in dry places. So here was this girl following them, and she began to cry, all these are. Well, the demons began to speak. And I'm telling you, when you are full of the Holy Spirit, when the word is in you, you don't have to say anything. People will recognize you. People will recognize you. You wonder why people stare at you, because they see something in you that's different. All the time, they're not able to identify it, but they know that you're different. And oftentimes, they'll back away from you because those spirits in them began to tremble because of the spirit of the Father that's in you. And they tremble in terror. Hallelujah. Sometimes people will walk away from you. They'll leave your ministry because they want to hold on to those demonic spirits. And they know if they stay in your presence. They know if they stay in the word that you teach, because it's power, it's authority, and it's truth, that those demons will leave. Or they're going to continue to manifest them in ways that's unprofitable for them. So these spirits began to cry out. And they said, these are these mighty men of God. These men have been with Yeshua. And they come to teach us and to lead us into the way of salvation. And Apostle Paul turned and looked at her. He was not impressed with her. He understood, you're not flattering me. Those are demons crying out in you, identifying who I am and whose authority I come in. Come out of her. Yeah. See, he's the deceiver. Now, if Paul had been full of, vainglory and all of that, but oh, wow, she's calling me a mighty man of God. Oh, yeah, I'm the man. No, no, no. He says, oh, no, 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 no. No, 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 no. These are demons. And you know who I am. And you know who sent me. You know whose I am. I know him and he knows me. And I recognize you for who you are. You're a demon. You can always recognize demons. They can't hide. Sooner or later they're going to cry out. There's something about demonic spirits. They're going to speak. They can't keep quiet. Hallelujah. They must speak in the name of Yeshua. So you see that power. Let's look at Matthew 8 and 29. And behold, they cried out, saying, what have we to do with thee? This is still talking about this damsel. Thou son of God, thou art come hither to torment us before the time. These are the swines. This is the difference. These are the swines. This man was possessed with demons. And Yeshua didn't say a word. He just showed up on the scene. And they started crying out. They ran to him. Oh, in fear and terror. What have we to do with thee? Jesus, thou Son of God, art thou come hither to torment us before the time? You're here before the time. We still have time. It's not time for us to be cast into the bottomless pit yet. Send us into the swine. She says, okay. And that's what happened. That's what happened. So demon spirits recognize you. They're supposed to. That's when you're walking beyond believing. And you're walking totally by faith and in trust in the word of Yahweh. So this is what the Father wants us to know in this teaching. You say that you believe. Wonderful. But that's not sufficient, especially in this day and time, this season, with all of these things coming upon the earth realm. We don't know if there's going to be an end to this. I really don't even know if life will ever go back to the norm as we once knew it. Stores and more stores and closing. All kinds of catastrophes are happening all over the world. Different variants. More and more plagues. These are plagues. There's no answer to it. There's no end to it until Yahweh says that this is the answer and this is the time. So we must go beyond believing. We must go deeper into the truth. Go deeper into revelation. Go deeper into knowing who we are. So that whenever comes, whatever winds blow, we're a house that's built upon a solid foundation. And we're going to stand in the name of Yeshua. Now I want you to stay tuned for part 2 that will be coming up shortly. Be blessed and by all means be safe. In Yeshua's name, shalom.